Hello there everybody, my name's Ryan, the official host of Askreddit Tells, and today we're going to be looking at some of the top stories from r/NuclearRevenge. Before we do though, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to stay up to date on all the latest videos. He grabbed me, I took everything. I'm writing this on a throwaway account and on mobile. I apologize for any inconvenience. To start off, I want to clarify that I went way overboard, and at the time this story took place, I was in a bad spot in my life. But I do not regret what I did in any way. So about 4 years ago, I was working as a certified nurse's aide. I later lost my job for unrelated reasons and never went back into the field for other reasons. While I was there, I was one of 4 who would train the new people. This is only relevant as the person this involves, who we will call John, was one of the guys I trained at our facility. John, for the most part, was easy to get along with, but had a temper, and everyone was aware of it. What I didn't know at the time was that he was also fighting for custody of his child. One day, about a year into him working there, he had messed up some charting. No big deal, I fixed it and corrected him on his mistake. He at first was confused, but I just explained that he might have gotten the charting numbers mixed up and it was no problem. Now for reference, we did our charting paper style at the desk located between 2 of the halls, and occasionally our residents, patients, would be sitting in front of it while chatting with us. As most of them were dementia care, they never really remembered what would be said. But regardless, we never talked about anyone by name, only by room number or chart number. About a half hour after I got done cleaning up from a resident's shower, and he came in the shower room and asked to talk to me. Sure, that's fine, as it was a private area. He made mention that he didn't appreciate me correcting him in front of people. It made sense, so I apologized and told him it wouldn't happen again. I don't know where I went wrong, but he started getting loud about how it was his hall and how no one had the right to talk to him like that. Now I'm pissed. I told him that 1, we don't have hall leads at our facility, nor does any nursing home I've seen, excluding maybe our nurses who are in charge, and 2, I've been here for years longer than him, and apparently nothing I said while training him stuck. This didn't sit well with him. He proceeded to pin me to the wall of the shower room with his arm across my throat, and hand-holding my shirt as he held me there. He told me if I ever talked to him like that again, he was reporting me to state for HIPAA violations. Now, HIPAA is not something I take lightly. One slip-up could cost you everything in this field with an HIPAA violation. I was red with anger. My thing is, I'm double this guy's size, and I didn't want to lose my job for fighting with a coworker. This place was terrible, but I enjoyed helping the residents. So I started thinking and immediately had an idea. If there was one thing I knew, it was that the only thing worse for your license than a HIPAA violation was elder abuse. So I started my scheme. We had a man on our hall who had brain damage from football and such was highly combative, and it took 2 people to normally handle him. I was able to do him on my own generally, as I talked to him about football while taking care of him. I played defensive line in high school. That day, he had developed a bruise on his chest, and I had no clue where it came from. But I had where I was going to say it came from down. I immediately called in John to help my transfer of this resident to bed. As we got done and went into the hall, I, saying just loud enough for several CNAs and nurses to hear, stated, "I don't care why you did it, you never hit a patient." He was taken aback by the whole statement. It clicked after about 5 seconds what I just did to him. The nurses had me write a statement in which I mentioned I had asked if he knew where the new bruise came from, and John told me that while he was walking the resident to the bathroom, he kept squeezing his arm so he hit him in the chest. Yes, the guy who would squeeze arms and wrists when being walked. The next day, I came out and find out that John had lost his job and police and adult protective services were pressing charges on him. I don't know if he was found guilty or not. I did find out a few weeks later, however, that he not only lost his license, he also lost complete custody of his child to his ex-wife and got no visitation. On top of that, he had to sell everything he owned in order to pay for his lawyer. Needless to say, I could have been a little bit more fair with him, but I loved watching his life burn down around him. Let it be learned, don't grab or threaten people who can ruin your life with the drop of a hat. Edit. Grammar. Edit 2. After reading a lot of the comments, I did want to make one thing clear. Where I don't regret what I did was wrong. I don't condone it, nor would I ever do it again. I posted this because it was a neat story and I felt like sharing, but I did want to clarify this for anyone who thinks I'm proud of it. He lost his friends, his car, his job, and nearly lost an eye. I've been putting this off, but this is really the only nuclear revenge I've ever dealt out in my life. A little history about where I was before all of this. I had a very rocky relationship with my father, and my mom had just kicked me out at 19 with nowhere to go. My dad actually stepped up and helped me for the first time in my life by getting me into an apartment in my Puttock little hometown in South Idaho. I was hanging out with the wrong crowd and started going to parties and doing the things I missed out on doing with friends in high school. I was a goody two-shoes up to that point and a late bloomer who wasn't used to getting males' attention, meaning I was a virgin. I started hanging out at the park playing horseshoes and letting my friends get me absolutely trashed when I met a cowboy called Slick. I didn't have much of an interest in him other than just talking about old western movies. I'm a huge movie buff and actors from the silver screen of classic 1950s movies. Slick and I both worked for the same company, as did 98% of the small town we lived in, so we knew each other in passing. He started coming in to get horse meds and other vet supplies and always asked me to wait on him. Okay, whatever, that was my job. One of our mutual friends invited me to a bonfire at their house, which was right across from where Slick was staying in a bunkhouse. I went not even expecting to see Slick there, and had actually taken one of my best friends with me to keep an eye out for me, because I've never been a trusting person due to past traumas as a kid. A few hours pass, we're all drinking, and Slick keeps putting his arm around me and trying to dominate whatever conversation I'm having with my friends, especially around my guy friends. I'm tipsy and not really caring about it too much, and go off with a few of my girlfriends in a group where we're gossiping and talking. A couple hours pass by, and my friend drove up to the party and took off with another friend for a beer run. They never came back to the party. The party's winding down, and I don't feel comfortable driving home with any form of alcohol in my system, and Slick says he has a spare cot in his room I can have. I didn't feel comfortable going, but my other friends assured me Slick was trustworthy. We got to his room. There was no cot. Slick says he'll sleep on the floor, and we can watch Blazing Saddles, because he'd heard it was one of my favorites. I said fine and crawled into his bed, fully clothed. Sans shoes. Well, I'm sure you can guess what happened, so I'm not going to delve into the very unpleasant details. I didn't sleep the whole night. I just laid in bed in disbelief of what had happened. Actually happened. Once I knew he was asleep, I snuck out of his room and drove home, sobered by the experience. I don't know how long I sat in the shower, but the water ran cold and I called out sick of work for 2 days. Over the next few days, I had bruises that covered my entire body. I had bite marks and scratches and fingertip bruises everywhere. I had also developed one of the worst UTIs I've ever experienced in my life, and called the town clinic for examination to make sure everything was okay, and declined to report it because the cops in my very small and rural town always sided with the men when women reported their assaults. Slick became an awful force in my life. When he wasn't bothering me in work, he was leaving dead rattlesnakes on my doorstep and telling all of our mutual friends and acquaintances how he put another notch in his belt. And pretty soon after, all his buddies stopped hanging around him when they realized he was a piece of crap. The revenge. My dad is a 6'8" Cossack Russian. He worked as a machinist for many years, making his already very big hands thick and calloused. Important for later. He's a very intimidating man and has a violent streak. Because I was on bad terms with my mom, I turned to him, fully trusting him as someone I could confide in. His wife had to take pictures of my bruises for my doctor's file. I don't know why the doctor didn't take them herself. She told me to bring them in for the file. On my health to go to the assault report. My dad was livid, but he pushed his fury deep down and waited for later. Slick drove a really shitty Oldsmobile. He also liked to go out drinking every day after work. A few of my friends had been filled in as to what Slick did, and thus the rest of the town knew as news spread like the plague in tiny towns. Slick's crappy car mysteriously caught fire outside of the busy bar. Yet no one had seen anything regarding how it started. 2 weeks after his car burned up, my hometown had its annual birthday celebration. My dad goes to it every year and catches up with friends he hasn't seen in a long time. This means also visiting the town's bar. This is what my dad ended up telling me after everything happened. He walked in, said hello to the owner, and demanded to know where the one called Slick was. The bar owner begged him not to make a huge scene, and to just keep things civil since he knew what my dad was there for. He told my dad that Slick was playing poker on the deck out back and that my dad went out looking for him. He found Slick and asked him if Slick knew who he was. Slick was disrespectful and said he didn't give a care who he was. He was busy playing poker with his friends, who weren't really friends, but guys who knew my dad and just watched everything happen. Strike one. My dad told him he was Nat Attack 89's dad, and he needed to talk to him about respecting young women. Slick said there wasn't anything about me to respect. Strike two. My dad tells Slick to get his ass out of the chair and speak to him like a man. Slick tells my dad to piss off. Strike three. My dad picked up Slick, who's 5'4" and at the time was 180-ish pounds, by his collar and stuck his thumb into Slick's right eye socket. My dad said he had never heard a grown man scream like a woman before that, and all he could do was smile about it. He dropped Slick on the ground and walked out of the bar. My dad was afraid the cops were going to be coming for him, so he found me at the concession stand I was working at to tell me everything that had happened before, and he left back for home. Nobody called the cops, though. The following week, the bosses at the company caught wind of what Slick had done to me and had already had an investigation open against him because they had noticed some very expensive horseshoeing tools had gone missing with him, and being the only person around at the time. I should add that the company, though very large, was a tight-knit, family-oriented business in this small town. Both of my parents worked there, and the bosses had known me since I was knee-high. They were very upset and ended up firing him and gave him 12 hours to vacate the company premises, including the bunkhouse. I only saw Slick in person once more about a month later, and his eye was still black. I had a panic attack when I seen him, so I didn't stick around for long for howdy-doos. And that's my nuclear revenge story. It's long and a bit painful to remember, but I'm still healing and moving on from it 10 years later. My life has gotten better, and I know his life is miserable, and that makes me happy. Too long didn't read. Assaulter had his car set on fire, got a thick Russian thumb stuck in his eye socket, lost his job, and got chased out of town. Edit. Wow, I never thought I'd get a gold star from this. Thank you, kind stranger. Edit 2. Thank you everyone for the kind words. I really do appreciate it. I'm sorry this wasn't nuclear enough for some people. For those wanting to know where my relationship with my father is strained, here's a link to the reason why we have not talked in a few years. If you've been assaulted and you need a stranger to talk to, I'm happy to listen. Sometimes all we need is a stranger to talk to feel the burden go away. And that about does it for today's episode of r/NuclearRevenge. Did you like it? Maybe check out some of our other stuff and even subscribe. As always, my name's Ryan, the official host of Askreddit Tells, and I look forward to seeing you guys in tomorrow's video.